All right, chat. We got an update on the Vitaly news. What's been happening with Mr. Vitaly? Hoping he can get that 20 years. 20 years, indeed. Well, actually, to be honest, hopefully he gets like a good old. Hopefully he has the book slammed onto him. To be honest, actually, I'm kind of curious of what my other friend or so, because she's also from the Philippines too, and I'm actually kind of curious what she thinks about the whole Vitaly thing. I'm kind of curious on that. But anyways, we got some updates. We finally got some updates from the Philippines, All of our Pepino audiences, Honestly, I'm curious what this is all about. Where's King when you need him? He's probably out and about working with the prisoner guard, on Vitaly, Anyways, let's take a look at it. Let's see what new development has been happening over there. Haven't really been keeping up with it because this whole VA shit that's been happening recently. No, King is not here. Our residential Pepino man is not here, unfortunately.
If they charge him with this, he'll automatically receive 20 years in prison.
I'm sure the government is going to punish or do everything that they can against Vitaly to help to hold him accountable or liable.
And that's what the Filipino attorney told me today in regards to the Vitaly situation in the Philippines.
Damn.
Because a few weeks ago, the Russian-American creator Vitaly thought it would be a great idea to steal a motorcycle, an industrial fan, a red light mask, and a couple guard hats, and then harass a bunch of Filipino citizens for his own live stream content. This, surprisingly, when you look at his past record, was the worst decision of his life, especially stealing the motorcycle. Because in the Philippines, stealing a car or a motorcycle is an automatic 20-year prison sentence. But because he never turned on the motorcycle, there's some room for discussion about the potential charge, as he hasn't formally been charged for that yet. Clearly, I'm way out in the deep end here, so I decided to contact the practicing Filipino attorney and YouTube creator, attorney Neil Abayan. And here he had a lot of information to share with us in regards to how the legal process in the Philippines works and how big of a mess Vitaly accidentally landed himself into is. How was the reaction within the Philippines of what Vitaly did?
So first, it was pretty much covered by the mainstream media. That's why there were interviews conducted against the government officers. So one of the most viral, or is it viral is a proper term? One of the videos or interviews that was heavily covered was with the Secretary of Interior local government here. The one that when Vitaly was brought behind him and Vitaly was making gestures, disrespectful gestures. So that guy was the secretary of the Department of Interior local government, who has jurisdiction over the local government units here, over the police, and so on.
Is there a lot of pressure from the Philippines to essentially actually punish this guy for what he did?
I'm sure the government is going to punish or do everything that they can against Vitaly to help to hold him accountable or liable.
So Vitaly just stumbled into being a pawn in some political game, potentially.
Yes, that could be one thing.
So what they did there, that is not normal for criminals to be brought out like that.
Yes, because first and foremost, Vitaly is not the only foreigner who was declared as an unfavorable alien, But because of what he did, he covered it in his social media. He conducted live streams with it.
Yeah.
So they treated him extra special, basically.
Wow. What's the ongoing process he's currently going through?
There isn't really that much updates from the mainstream media news outlets here because they covered it for like a week. Then after that, it basically died down already. So the last articles I was able to read, they've already filed cases against him and that he is in detention with the Bureau of Immigration. So I'm assuming he's undergoing deportation proceedings together with criminal charges. So just to give you an idea, for the criminal cases that was already most likely filed or probably will be filed against him, from the news articles I saw, it's basically bailable offenses that they charge him with, the unjust vexation and a couple of theft cases. Those are all bailable crimes here in the Philippines. So what's going on also, since he's most likely also undergoing deportation proceedings with the Bureau of Immigration, the right to bail is not automatically guaranteed in deportation proceedings because a deportation proceeding is not a criminal case. So there's already decided cases for that with the Supreme Court. So basically my point here is that Vitaly will not be automatically be released while the deportation proceedings is undergoing together with the criminal cases.
Okay.
if that
So-
makes sense.
Damn.
Yeah, so he won't be let go on bail currently.
For the deportation proceedings, no. Because
Okay.
again, deportation proceedings are not criminal in nature, so bail is not a matter of right in deportation proceedings. It's not automatic. Unlike if they don't conduct the deportation proceedings, they just go with the criminal cases against him. Like I said, the cases that were filed against him or will be most likely filed against him are all bailable, so they can release him on bail. So that's most likely why he is under currently the jurisdiction of the Bureau of Immigration, so that he won't be able to, bail to apply or post bail right away for the criminal cases.
When is the nearest time he'll be able to essentially bail out or be somewhat free? When do you think that would be?
For the deportation proceedings, there's no bail there. So it's totally discretionary on the Bureau of Immigration if they want to, temporarily release him while he's undergoing the deportation proceedings. For his criminal cases, once it is filed with the prosecutor level, he can already file a motion for bail for that. However, we have to remember, since he is also most likely, or he's probably undergoing also deportation proceedings, he will still be detained in the Bureau of Immigration, even if he will be allowed to post bail for the criminal cases. Those are two different cases, actually.
Yeah.
That's why I'm trying to differentiate it. Hopefully, I'm able to explain it in a simple and understandable way.
How long will it take for his
Damn, that's crazy. As a Filipino, as much as I want to care, I don't. We have too much political chaos here. We got a mayor that turns out to be a Chinese spy, a pastor diddler who thinks he's Jesus that somehow still managed to run for the senator, and the former president and his daughter being charged for genocide by the ICC. And then the case was dropped by the very same court. And finally, CCP trying to evade the Southeast Asia seas, even if it means by deleting them on Google Maps. Ooh, yikes.
trial to start, do you think?
Generally here in the Philippines, if it's in the investigation level, in the prosecutor level, let's say it takes minimum probably fastest 6 to 8 months. That's and during that time, that's still the investigation of the prosecutor level. However, in Vitaly's case, since he's already under detention in the Bureau of Immigration, then he's already deprived of his liberty at present, even without the proper criminal cases filed. Because again, I'm assuming he's also undergoing deportation proceedings. There's no current new developments, new articles that they are releasing about him. That's why I'm not fully aware what the status of his case is already. These are all based on, my assumptions as a lawyer, because I have an idea of how the deportation proceedings work, how the criminal cases here work. So
He will stay in the detention facility until his criminal cases start, most likely.
he will stay there even if his criminal cases have not yet started. He will still stay there because, again, he's most likely undergoing also deportation proceedings. Basically, from how I see it, the government is doing everything they can to detain him, because if they will just stick with the criminal charges, he will just post bail, then he will be free. In cases like this, the most common thing, or generally what governments usually do, they just detain the undesirable alien for a couple of days, weeks probably, then they just deport him. But here that's not the case. They want him to be held liable fully for the criminal charges, and then they're playing around with the deportation proceedings, I'm assuming now, to maximize the detention of him during the pendency of the cases.
If you were to guess, what do you think his sentence would roughly be?
For the cases that were filed, it's very minimal, just like a month for each, theft. A month or 2 months detention the most. So unjust vexation, that's the lightest of all crimes here in the Philippines. Basically, if you can't file anything else, you're just going to file that. So in essence, unjust vexation simply means that if you do something that annoys or offends another person. Let's say there's one unjust vexation, that's 1 month, and then for the theft charges that were filed against him, probably it's also going to be a month or 2 the most, considering the value of the things that he stole based on the video. The security guard's cap, the fan is less than 5,000, so more or less it's a month or 2 for the theft, for each count of theft that's filed against him. If you've
what
seen
about
my
for the
video,
motorcycle?
so that's actually one thing, because if you saw my video about him, one of the things he did was when he took the motorcycle, the motor vehicle. So here in the Philippines, we have a special penal law for that. So if you take a motor vehicle, including motorcycles here, that's automatically considered as carnapping, the crime of carnapping here. So the minimum penalty for that is 20 years right away.
Oh, okay.
Holy shit,
so
dude.
do you think they'll file that charge against him?
Based on the articles I've read, they didn't file that one against him for some reason. So
Okay.
I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe they'll amend the charges along the way. They can do that. The prosecution can do that.
And then he also had the harassment that he did towards 2 of the guards. But from what I've seen, they haven't filed charges against that.
If it's not assault, or it goes down to what we call acts of lasciviousness here.
Yeah.
However, it's going to be hard to argue that there was like a intent on Vitaly's part in that situation. So most likely that can fall under unjust vexation. That's why they filed unjust vexation cases against him.
Makes sense. Okay, so the big thing that basically
It's a motorcycle.
Yeah, the motorcycle is what like could make or break his freedom here.
Yeah, because he actually took it.
Yeah.
He actually rode it. Then they started videoing. They wanted the security guard to go after him.
Yeah.
So the only issue from how I see it in that case is if whether or not the court will actually consider the taking as there is intent to gain on his part. Because for theft cases, for carnapping cases, intent to gain is an essential element. So if it was me, I can argue that there is clearly intent to gain on the part of Vitaly because he's a professional live streamer. So every time he does some stupid act, then it can be considered that he gains a lot from it. Even though it's not directly from the motorcycle, but from his profession, there's actual gain already. Although it's not automatic. It's not guaranteed that the court will agree with me. However, if this will really push through with the case, it's what we call a case of first impression, meaning it's the first case of its kind involving streamers, content creators with carnapping. So it's really open for argument. So if it was me, that's going to be my argument. He's a professional content creator. He's a professional, what do you call it now? Clout. Yeah. So every time he does some stupid criminal act, he knows that he gains something from it. And it's not an indirect gain only, since again, he's a professional clout. That's my legal position on this, on that act.
And if you were to defend him,
I don't want to defend him.
Right. Okay. All right. Sounds good.
I'll be biased here, since he disrespected my country. Yeah. I'll let the other lawyers or let him do his defending. I'll focus on the prosecution against him.
In regards to his cameraman, what do you think is going to happen to him as he lives in the Philippines?
Yeah, so he can be considered as an accomplice to the crime. It can either be an accomplice or even also as a principal. Since since he also participated, it will just really depend on how the case is presented in court and up to what extent can the prosecution prove is the participation of the cameraman. But if you ask me, he can be held liable also, either as a principal.
It does really suck to be the person who's actually has to defend him,
by cooperation or by an accomplice.
Wow.
That's why he's hiding from the articles I've read. The cameraman's currently hiding.
It seems like he's kind of on the run now. He's addressed it, and he said that all the YouTubers are lying about him and that he's not wanted for questioning. But I'm not so sure if I buy that.
So we can see in the videos that he's the one, assisting Vitaly in committing those crimes. So automatically that makes you either an accomplice or a principal of the case.
Yeah, of course it makes you an
itself.
accomplice.
Do you think it's likely that he will just get picked up by the police, or will they start asking him to turn himself in?
He won't get picked up right away because there's no immediate crime already that has been committed. It's been a while already now, so there's an intervening period already regarding the actual cases. So the police can't conduct what we call a warrantless arrest. So what they have to do now is they have to file charges against him also.
So just after we finished that interview, it's now came out that his cameraman has officially been arrested. So I'll be making a follow-up video to this because I have a whole bunch of his streams recorded where he's essentially going on and on about saying that he did nothing wrong and he's not going to get arrested. Well, it would seem like that's not the case anymore. So definitely stay tuned for that video. It's crazy that Vitaly's entire freedom is resting on if they decide to charge him for this motorcycle incident or not, as more charges can come his way any day now, because just like so many other people that we cover, they live stream themselves committing all these felonies. So the prosecutors just need to review the footage and file charges accordingly. 20 years though for what he did sounds absolutely insane to me as a Westerner, as if he did this in the US, let's be realistic now, he would already be out on bail and would probably only be facing some fines. But that's why it's just so incredibly important for all these American creators to realize If you travel abroad and mess around in other countries, you are at the mercy of their legal system. So you better respect their culture. As your American rights, they're pretty much gone as soon as you leave the country. And don't get me wrong, Vitaly definitely deserves to get punished for this. I'm just not so sure about 20 years. That's pretty crazy. It'll definitely be interesting to see how all of this goes down. And I'm still baffled at how stupid Vitaly acted to do all of this over there. If you're Filipino, please stop by Attorney Neil's channel. I'll be linking down in the top of the description down below as he creates legal content in Tagalog. And if you're new here, feel free to subscribe, and YouTube thinks you'll enjoy this video, so I would definitely recommend checking out that one. But other than that, I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Peace.
Man, dude. That is crazy to hear this update or so for Vitaly. He could be born in the US, you know? Maybe his parents are, you know, Russian or something like that, you know? Vitaly is lucky that the law decided to step in 9 times out of 10. He would have gotten iced. Iced out if it wasn't in a nice area.
If they charge him...
That's very true. That is very true. But holy shit, 20 years? They're gonna give this man... Man, if they give this man 20 years, that'd be the craziest thing to hear that. But hopefully they charge him for that, because he technically stole. He stole from a fucking police officer. So, you know, that's definitely like... Even over here, if you steal a vehicle from a police officer, I think you get like a good amount of... You get a good amount of charges or so for that, you know? But who knows? We'll see. We'll see what happens. There's still more updates on this, which we'll be keeping tabs on it, of course. But anyways, that's the end of the video. You guys can comment, like, subscribe, do all that fancy jazzy stuff. Honestly, hearing this specifically is probably the most funniest thing I've ever heard in my entire life, to be honest. You know it, Hazu. Make sure you say bye to the YouTube frogs, you know. Man. Maybe one day I'll go to the Philippines. I have some Filipino friends, so it would be kind of nice to go to the Philippines, you know, to go sightseeing and, like, you know, do a bunch of random shenanigans. My friend can probably show me around, and she can probably show me some cool places to eat and stuff like that. So we're frogan now? No. But anyways, we're gonna see what happens on the especially on the cameraman or so, to see what's going on with that. We're gonna be seeing the update on that shit, because apparently he's been arrested now. So we'll see what's going on with that. But anyways, that's the end of the video. You guys can comment, like, subscribe, do all that fancy jazzy stuff, and yeah. What a specific update. Great. That's great. There's a lot of good updates. Johnny Somali, Vitaly, and some other shenanigans. But yeah, that's the end of the video. And peace.